That is powerful. And I've done a few podcasts now and just talking to people. There's always been these really instrumental, influential people that wanted to see you win. And I'm going to give you 10 months to figure it out. I'm going to uh, let you stumble for the first 6 to 12 months. Like you said, your theme is it takes you about a year. In this new world of like microwave society where everything needs to happen right now, I feel like there's a lot of managers and people that are expecting people to come fully baked the day that they walk in the door. And I think that that's important for you to say that even now there's that learning curve, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. The question I have for people that are starting out in their jobs, and I think it's just a little bit different environment, maybe from IT to other places. How would you establish your credibility while you're struggling in that first 6 to 12 months? Is there certain things you're doing or saying or how you show up to make sure it's like, I'm not fully baked in yet, but give me some grace, give me some time to build up? How do you make sure that you're not getting kicked off the island in that first year?
When you work with people, the biggest thing people really care for outside of the project outcome or the deliverables is transparency in how you approach them, right? Being honest in that conversation. Because also there are, as an individual, each of us have our own principles on how we want to manage people and how we want to work with people. It can vary from one individual to other. My philosophy with the people that I work with and work for, and I support people is I tell them, if you do your job, my philosophy is you get a paycheck. If you do something above what is expected in your role, I will support you also. But I also tell people, when I tell them, if you do your job, you get a paycheck. Certain people are very good in doing their job, extremely good, but they are not motivated to take their career to the next stage. And that's totally okay. I'm not going to push that individual to say, go into the next stage, right? That's what they are good at. So why not leverage them for that role that they are brought into their organization for, right? There are certain people who say, I want to try different things so that I can increase my skill set or I can go to the next stage in my career, whatever that might be, right? So as manager, I give them opportunity where they can add something to their skill. And I tell them, keep adding it, right? That is what I learned by how do you let, if you take the analogy of a younger kids, right? On day one, they don't eat on their own. You basically have to give them over a period of time. Okay, you teach one at a time. Same thing with people. A lot of people, you'd be surprised, want actually their manager to support them and help them, even though they may not ask because of the fear that, am I going to be not given that opportunity because I asked for help? I have no inhibitions like that. Maybe that is my skill that I have no inhibitions. But I think if you come across as asking for help, you probably will be successful in doing your job most of the time.
Okay, that's fair. And it's to your point, is that transparency, that honesty from the very beginning of what you do know and what you don't know and where you need the help. All right,
Yep.
let's move on to the next segment. It's called the playbook. Let's talk more. We've been doing this a lot, but let's talk more about the strategies and kind of higher level. Now I'm going to get technical here, and this is more for our IT folks, but a core part of your job, it's to make business processes frictionless. So when you think about enterprise apps, it's all the different tools that people use to do their jobs, especially at tech companies. We want that to just be, I click a button, everything works. I don't want to think about it. So you're supposed to enable this frictionless business process. How do you do that practically? But how do you redo that job to make people feel seamless when they're clicking all these different tools?
I'm an Apple user. I use Apple. I do not know how to use a Google phone. So the way, the first few years, I thought technology solves world hunger, so I can do anything that I want to. Over a period of time, you will see a pattern. Every company wanted, or every business process that exists in an organization wants it to be simple. Nobody likes complication. If I tell you, Brian, do you want a simple process or do you want a complicated process? The answer is always simple,
Always simple.
right? There are no exceptions to that, right? So when somebody explains me or tells me this is the problem they are trying to solve, I try to process this into what is the simplest process that can support what they are asking for. And what is the simplest technology solution that supports this simple process? That is the first thing I will always look at. From there, then I identify the variations to the simple process. So that kind of helped me keep things much simpler.
Let me interrupt you there. Do you have like a specific framework? Are you using process maps, you know, the little squares and the circles and the arrows and all that? What are you specifically, literally doing in order to figure out and map out process to see that's too complicated? How do we simplify it? Is it all in your head? Is it an Excel spreadsheet? What are you doing to simplify that?
So I'll talk about the execution side of what I do. So when I was a business process analyst and after I became a manager, I basically have this philosophy, and people can do it in their notebooks, people can do it in their flowchart, or whatever is comfortable with them. Have them write out the steps in the process, whether you like flowchart, whether you like the steps. And then if you put it on a white sheet of paper, you're going to realize that maybe you don't need this step. You need this step because few years ago, this company had this process which is no longer valid. You can probably eliminate 5 to 10% of this step just by writing it down and then seeing where the gaps are. Then you see how much of the steps requires a very simple tool or an automation. We don't know which one is applicable. By doing that, you're going to realize there's only 1 or 2 steps in the entire process that even makes this simple process complicated. So now you break it down. I always tell people, break down the problem into the lowest common denominator. Take your steps, take the flow chart, take your instruction, however you want to do it. You want to do it in Excel, you want to do it in a flow chart, you want to do it in a PowerPoint, you want to write it in a notepad, doesn't matter. Take that and break it into the simplest problem you are trying to solve for. You will find your answers.
And that's simple. And it's not this overcomplicated thing, the way that you break it down. It feels like it should be, but that's simple. And that's not just for IT. That's for HR. That's for customer success.
Every organization is like that. When you meet a lot of people into your organization, that I think a lot of people talk about this tool can solve this problem and this is the best way to solve it, right? I agree with that, right? But how many of the organization needs the best way to solve the problem? They need to solve the problem. It doesn't need to be the best way.
It needs to be the most simple, and it needs to be the best.
It needs to be the most simple way that solves the problem now. And can that tool give me the flexibility to expand when my process becomes a little bit more complicated? Can it scale over time? As long as you satisfy those two, you're okay.
Is there a lot of convincing in your role? Companies have, we need this tool, we need this thing, we need this system. Is a lot of what your role is it to say no? So, hey, we need to implement, let's say, Workday, or we need to name whatever financial planning tool and all the different tools that you have to implement. Is a lot of your job understanding that process to implement it and to make it work and saying, hey, company, I don't think this needs to happen because this is going to be too disruptive for our business?